All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and figure out how we can totally transform our daily interactions and self-management. In a world that is so obsessed with technical skills, hard data, and maximizing efficiency, we actually tend to forget the absolute most complex system we deal with every single day: other human beings. Today, we're unlocking some profound insights from Neil Thompson's highly acclaimed book, People Skills. Whether you're a seasoned pro managing a massive department, working on the front lines, or really just someone trying to navigate everyday human relationships a bit more smoothly, these foundational concepts are a total game changer for how you operate, communicate, and manage your own energy.
Thompson kicks things off with a fascinating, yet honestly pretty stark warning. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Think about it. When it comes to dealing with people, we so often fall into the trap of thinking we already know exactly what we're doing. And why wouldn't we? We interact with folks every single day. We talk, we listen, we collaborate. But here's the catch. Simply relying on those basic, untested assumptions without cultivating deep self-awareness can actually hold us back professionally. Treating human interaction casually means we miss the incredibly subtle cues that drive genuine connection. We really have to go beyond absolute basics if we want to become truly effective practitioners.
To start building that true expertise, we have to completely abandon this super common yet totally defeatist myth. The idea that great organizational or people skills are just innate qualities you're magically born with. How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, she's just a natural people person," right? It implies you either have the gift or you don't. Well, actually, scratch that. We need to embrace the reality here. These are highly learnable behaviors. Human interaction is a skill set. It's exactly like learning a new language or picking up an instrument. You aren't permanently stuck with the skills you have right now. You literally have the power to actively develop them through deliberate practice. So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover why people skills are learnable, explore the think, feel, and do framework, and look at developing self-awareness. Then, we'll hit navigating blind spots, managing time and energy, and wrap it all up with the highly practical 3-minute rule. Let's jump right into Section 1. People skills are learnable, and how we overcome that defeatist attitude. We've all heard someone make an excuse like, "This isn't for me, I'm just not the sort of person who's organized." Or maybe in a moment of frustration, we've even said it ourselves. It sounds like a simple statement of fact, doesn't it? But Thompson points out a much deeper psychological truth here. Making excuses and refusing to change your habits is, at its core, a refusal to learn and grow. When we say, "I can't be organized," or "I'm just not good with angry customers," what we're usually saying is, "I really don't want to put in the effort to learn." Real skill development means we have to drop these excuses completely and take ownership of our own growth. Which perfectly segues into Section 2, Think, Feel, and Do, the dimensions of learning. Now, to actually develop these vital skills, we need a robust framework to guide how we process our everyday work. Learning isn't just sitting down, reading a textbook, nodding along, and memorizing a few facts. Real professional development is a continuous, dynamic loop made of 3 key dimensions: the cognitive, the affective, and the behavioral. Or, in plain English, thinking, feeling, and doing. These 3 elements have to interact constantly for us to evolve from beginners into true experts. Let's break that down so we can actually use it. First up, we have think. This is the cognitive piece, where we have to stay incredibly vigilant so we don't fall into dangerous, robotic routines. When you stop thinking about why you're doing a task, that's exactly when mistakes happen. Second is feel, the affective dimension. Working closely with people inevitably means navigating complex, sometimes painful emotions, both our own and those of our clients or colleagues. If you ignore feelings, you're just asking for a disaster. And finally, do is the behavioral dimension. This is where the rubber meets the road, and we put our ideas into practice through concrete action. By actively balancing what we think, what we feel, and what we do, we desensitize ourselves to common pitfalls. We're actively building our applied expertise, not just passively collecting theory. Moving right along to Section 3, developing your self-awareness, which is our internal foundation. Okay, so self-awareness is essentially the process of getting to know your own feelings, attitudes, and values, and most importantly, learning about the effect you have on others. The source material shares this profound example of a health professional working with the parents of a child named Tina. Tina's parents were super anxious, and the professional was just offering standard textbook reassurance, but it wasn't working at all. It was actually making things worse. It was only when the professional really tuned in, recognized the parents' specific fears, actively listened, and adjusted her own behavior that a genuine breakthrough happened. If we aren't keenly attuned to how our subtle behaviors impact others, we're going to fail to connect when it matters most. But There is a very fine line we have to walk here. Being self-aware is a massive professional strength. It lets you adjust your approach in real time and continuously improve. Keeping something like a daily reflection diary is an amazing way to build this muscle. However, if you cross that line into being overly self-conscious, obsessing over yourself, second-guessing every single word, drowning in your own anxieties, that turns into a huge weakness. That kind of self-absorption actually blocks skilled practice because you aren't focused on the other person anymore. We want steady awareness, for sure, but absolutely not paralyzing obsession. Which brings us to a really urgent question. Are you ignoring your own needs? There's a totally relatable story in the text about a woman named Elaine. Elaine was so passionately thrilled to work with her learning disabled clients that she gave 100% of herself, all day, every day, without ever recharging. And what happened? She completely burned out and fell seriously ill. This is such a common trap in modern workplaces, especially for high achievers. We have got to ask ourselves if we're sacrificing our own baseline needs at the expense of our energy. Because the hard truth is, if your batteries are completely empty, you have absolutely zero power left to help anyone else. That shifts our focus nicely to Section 4, navigating your blind spots and how others affect us.
So we don't operate in a vacuum, right? Our past is pretty much always riding shotgun. Let's unpack 3 powerful psychological concepts. First up, triggers. These are past experiences that make us react super intensely, either positively or negatively, to a present situation that maybe doesn't even warrant such a big reaction. Second is transference. This is when we unknowingly transfer unresolved feelings about a person from our past onto a totally new person who just happens to unconsciously remind us of them. Wild, right? And third, blind spots. These are missing sensitivities. For example, you might pride yourself on being fiercely anti-racist, but be completely blind to your own subtle gender biases during meetings. We are constantly affected by these 3 things without even realizing it. They act as hidden, powerful filters for our everyday experiences.
So, how do we fix this? We can map these unknowns using a brilliant, visually intuitive tool called the Johari window. This framework maps out what is known to ourselves versus what is known to others across 4 areas: open, blind, hidden, and unknown. The whole goal of professional development is to expand that open area. We use deliberate self-disclosure to reduce our hidden areas, and we rely on honest feedback from trusted colleagues to act as mirrors, shrinking those blind spots. By actively working this framework, we constantly increase our mutual awareness, which makes us way more effective, trustworthy, and empathetic professionals.
Armed with all this deep internal awareness, let's pivot to Section 5, time and energy management, taking it to outward execution.
There's a critical and often totally misunderstood distinction we need to make about how we work. Effectiveness means doing the right things, picking the right goals to go after. But efficiency means doing things right, executing those goals with zero waste. Time management is fundamentally an exercise in efficiency. It's about ensuring that the precious, non-renewable time we give to our people and tasks isn't wasted or misdirected. Time is arguably our absolute most valuable resource. If we want to master people skills, we have to treat our time and the time of others with profound respect. Let me introduce you to something we can call Philip's trap. Philip loved being constantly busy, rushing from task to task, because that frenzy made him feel incredibly important and needed. But because he totally failed to actually sit down, plan his week, set firm priorities, or retain any real control over his schedule, his efforts were just entirely wasted and chaotic. He was literally just spinning his wheels. We have got to actively avoid the seductive trap of being constantly busy without investing the time to actually plan our work. The golden rule here is simple but tough. You have to invest time up front to save time later. The real secret sauce behind all of this? Time management is actually energy management. Treating every hour of the day as identical is a huge mistake. You need to map and match your natural energy peaks to your specific tasks. If you're a morning person who wakes up sharp, do your absolute most difficult, most mentally taxing, or most disliked tasks first thing in the morning when your battery is completely full. Aligning your hardest tasks with your personal optimum time periods is vital. It preserves your willpower, keeps your morale high, and is literally the key to avoiding long-term exhaustion. And this brings us to our highly tactical final strategy in Section 6, the 3-minute rule for beating the backlog. 3. That's it, just the number 3. This single number represents one of the easiest, most immediately actionable ways to take back control of a chaotic day and stop feeling so overwhelmed. Here's exactly how it works. The 3-minute rule dictates that if a minor task crosses your desk and it takes less than 3 minutes to complete, you do it straight away. Do not schedule it, do not flag it for later, just do it. By immediately tackling brief tasks like signing a form, firing off a quick email reply, or filing a single document, you prevent a tedious, overwhelming backlog. Because when those microscopic tasks pile up, the sheer cognitive weight of remembering all of them totally drains your future energy and causes massive procrastination. Don't let them accumulate. Just knock them out.
Okay, let's do a quick rapid-fire review of our core takeaways for mastering people skills. 1. Treat these skills as learned behaviors. You aren't stuck with the skills you were born with. 2. Constantly use the think, feel, do triangle to avoid robotic routines. 3. Map your blind spots and triggers so they don't secretly control your reactions. 4. Invest time planning today to save time executing tomorrow. 5. Manage your natural energy peaks, not just the clock on the wall. And finally, apply that 3-minute rule relentlessly to clear the mental clutter.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, vital question as you step back into your own day-to-day practice. What is the single step you will take today to move from simply surviving your workload to truly thriving in your career? Remember, having a little knowledge might be dangerous, but actively applying these structured frameworks, that turns basic knowledge into real world-class professional expertise. Thanks so much for learning with me today.